other thing to recognize is, men played a role in that, and a lot of women who have abortions have them because either they feel that they were pressured into doing that by the boyfriend or the husband or the family, or in the very least they didn't feel that they had the support structure needed in the form of a man who loved them and cared about them and wanted to love the child that he created with this woman.
Welcome back to Seeing the Unseen, a pro-life podcast dedicated to change hearts and minds and encourage people to be actively pro-life by sharing life stories, testimonies, and opinions. I am Theodora Diana Paul, and I am delighted to be your host. Now, we are living in a time when a real problem that needs to be solved by every young person is, what is my place in the world? Now, to help them with some tips, at least to know how to address this question, I have here with me John Mark Porter. John, hi, welcome to Seeing the Unseen. I'm so glad you are here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, John Mark is a pro-life activist from South Carolina, from the United States. He got involved in the pro-life movement from the moment he set foot on campus, and he was president at his university pro-life student organization. What's remarkable, I would say, and quite unique about him is that he did not stay just in the United States. He went outside of the United States to Africa, to Uganda, to help launch pro-life student organizations there. So this is something amazing. Now, John Mark, you finished your studies. You even work full-time, and you don't work full-time in the pro-life movement. You're an accountant for non-profit ministries, but you still stay involved in the pro-life movement. You're involved in your local pro-life sidewalk counseling ministries. You continue to support the Africa Life Youth Foundation, and you're also on the board of Pro-Life Global. Many will ask what motivated you to stay involved even after your college years. So let's start with the first question for you today. Tell us about you, about your background, how you got involved, basically what motivated you to get involved, and what keeps you going in the pro-life movement.
Well, that's a great question. I'd say I really started getting involved in the pro-life movement in my college years. Again, when I stepped onto campus at the University of South Carolina in my hometown. So before that, though, I did have some understanding of my convictions. I knew that I was pro-life. I didn't know entirely what that meant, but around the time I was 8, my mom was pregnant with my younger sister, and there were some complications in the pregnancy, and we found out that she was going to have a condition. It was like trisomy 18 or 19, and that has a very high level of like a high chance that the baby is going to die. If not in the womb, then very, very soon after the baby was born. And in spite of that, all the family, all 4 of my siblings and myself, we were really excited about the baby and the pregnancy. Mom was excited, Dad was excited, and we knew it was going to be difficult. And they communicated that to us even when we were, 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds and so on. But on the day that she was due, Anna Elizabeth passed. Like she was delivered stillborn, and in spite of that, she was loved for every moment of her existence by her family, by her siblings, by her mom, by her dad, and we knew that as kids that her life was valuable and it had meaning, and it didn't just she didn't not exist because she was born stillborn. She was a valuable member of our family, and so I knew from a very early age, okay, life is precious. It's meaningful in the womb. And later on in middle school and high school, I wasn't like really engaged in the pro-life movement. I didn't know what that meant, but I did see some members of my community and people who I respected I was homeschooled, so members of my homeschooling community were really involved in the pro-life movement, and I looked up to them and said, "Man, those are the kind of people that uh, I really appreciate what they're doing and standing up for life and having the conviction to believe something and then act upon it." So for me, that's how I came to campus with those kind of thoughts in mind. And when I came to campus, I'm away from home. I'm my own independent person now. I have to start making decisions for myself. So I knew I wanted to be involved in something that was bigger than myself. And so I went to campus, saw that there was a pro-life student organization, and signed up for the first meeting. And when I got there were only 4 or 5 other people who showed up to that meeting, and they had a booth out, and there were thousands of students on campus. We have like a 25,000 student campus uh, at the university I was at. And, 5 people showed up, and most of those 5 were people who had shown up for years before. And so in that moment, I decided, well, I know that this is important. I know that lives are on the line, literally. And I know that if I don't show up, a couple other people are going to show up, but it's just going to be those people in that room. So I have a duty and obligation to stand up for something that I believe in, and so I'm going to show up to these meetings. And that's what I did for the next few years is I showed up, I was a good, member. I showed interest in the group meetings, but I wasn't necessarily, pushing the agenda or stepping up to lead. Eventually, because I was a consistent member of that club, and I was going to the volunteer events and responding to uh, the messages in the group texts and all that kind of stuff. They asked me to run for office, so I ran for a little officer position, and then eventually up for the president. Um, but even in that, the first 3 years of college, I wasn't very active or outspoken about what I believed. It was something that I was like involved in and I cared about, but it wasn't something that I cared about to the extent that I was evangelical about it or sharing about it with all my friends and saying, "Oh man, you need to really come to this." So around as I was entering my senior year of college, that's the fourth year, the kind of your final year, unless you're taking postgraduate studies. I realized, I'm really not pulling my weight here. I'm a good, just I'm showing up, but something more is really needed. So I started really getting engaged in, okay, what can we really do to uh, grow this group and grow this student organization so that it's actually around a couple years after I leave. That's one of the things that student organizations really struggle with is you get a couple, solid leaders for a couple years and then they graduate, they move on to better and bigger things. And then the student organization has died because you don't have the same people following in your footsteps. So I really wanted to do that, and also wanted to get involved more actively in the community stuff that was happening. So I got involved in the sidewalk counseling ministry, doing volunteerism with the Pregnancy Resource Center, connecting with pro-life leaders with Students for Life of America, going to DC and lobbying, going and speaking out at legislative stuff in our state that was happening, and just finding ways to uh, kind of programming a response into my body where if I heard about something that was pro-life that was happening, it was like, okay, well, I'm showing up to that. It becomes kind of it moves up on your kind of hierarchy of priorities. It moves up from, okay, this is the 10th priority that I have in my day where 9 other things come up, I'm going to do those 9 other things first. No, it becomes the second or the first or the third priority, depending on those other things, of course. But it kind of worked its way up in my life to where now I'd say it's up there. It's a top priority for me. So uh, I don't remember if that answers your question exactly, but that's kind of my journey. And then eventually, I guess, towards the end of college, and I took a year for my master's program. Uh, there was a need that I responded to for. So again, you program in your brain over the course of that experience. I started programming in my brain a response of, well, if no one else is going to answer this call, I'm going to do it. So around my fourth year of college, there was this need to go help and train pro life leaders and pro life students over in Uganda. So they had, pro-life activists over there, but not student organizations that could really operate in the schools and the universities. So there was a call to basically go over there and help with that. And I didn't really see anyone else answering the call. So I'm like, well, I know how to do this. I think I can help. So I went over, I met Mr. Richard Sampala at the Africa Life Youth Foundation. That ministry engages and equips young students over in Uganda, especially some of the rural villages, to stand up for life. We got some camps going, started about 20 student organizations. They went on to save dozens of babies over the next few years. And now I'll go back and visit them trying to do it about every year, and just helping them, seeing them grow, and setting them up for success. So,
Wow, that's wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And I think one thing that I would like to maybe highlight, a thing that you said, and it's very interesting because I think it applies to loads of young people, is that thing about prioritizing stuff. Now, sometimes, or at least in my generation, I feel that people want results immediately. You go somewhere, you want to like it, and if you don't like it, you're not going to stay there. You're going to look for something else that will make you kind of feel the way you look to feel, and sometimes not sometimes, most of the times it's not like that. You actually have to kind of dedicate time and work towards something in order to get to like it, because many times you won't like the thing from the beginning because you maybe don't know it, but working towards it, understanding its importance, step by step, you actually start liking it because you see how valuable it is. I mean, I was like that when I started pro-life. I said to the people around me who are more involved in pro-life than me that yes, pro-life is very important. I want to do pro-life, but I don't want to do pro-life like the main thing. It's like the second main thing that I want to do, or the third main thing, or something like that. And then staying around them, working with them, understanding the importance of this issue. I mean, I get to this point where I cannot imagine my life without doing pro-life things. Like literally, I cannot. So I think that thing with prioritizing and how you got to prioritizing it is very important. So thank you for saying that. That's very meaningful.
absolutely.
Let's go to the second question because there are quite a few here. So it's quite linked to the idea that I just said about prioritizing. So young people, when starting things, they're usually very excited, have big dreams, but can become discouraged along the way because of the challenges, seeing that things are more difficult than they seem. Now, even if you're only 25, I know you have a lot of experience in the United States and obviously international, as you said. Maybe you can just summarize some points that you think are very important in your way. Like if you would do a summary of 5
Yeah.
steps from the moment of the beginning until now,
Ooh.
what would you say?
5 steps. I don't know that I have a 5-step program here, but what I'd say is some important things to keep in mind is, what are you doing, and why are you doing it, I guess. We're not doing it to necessarily, like, we don't always have to be results oriented in what we're saying. Obviously we want to achieve results. or pray for those results. But, you know, part of it is just this is a human rights, social justice issue, and you have an obligation. I would say a moral obligation, and as a Christian, I have a moral obligation given to me by my God, my Creator, to stand up for the weak, the defenseless, the unborn. It would be one of those people. So, knowledge of that conviction. I think a lot of people really there's this dissonance between that knowledge and acting upon that. Like, you know, certain things in the world are wrong, but you're not necessarily doing something about that. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you that's beyond your ability to really get involved in. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't, you know, take a stance on that. A couple things I'd say that were really instrumental for me is, especially getting through like discouragement and disappointment, was I had a very good support structure. My mentors in the pro-life movement and the people that I looked up to were very supportive. I could go to them with questions. If I had a setback, I could respond to it by just going to other people and saying, "Hey, you know, I ran into this. I had this event. No one showed up. It was really frustrating." And I can see the smile. You've had that happen
Yeah, I know.
before
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, I did. Yes.
You put a whole lot of effort into something, and then it doesn't bear fruit. And I think the important things to keep in mind is, you know, God can do much with little, and the whole Bible is peppered with that. You see that. You know, Gideon's 300 men. But also, that struggle is part of a learning process. You learn how people, you know, respond. What gets people excited to go to a pro-life event? If it's just like posting a graphic on Instagram, that might not be enough. It might be something where you need to go out and personally create a relationship with those people, or use the relationship that you have to say, hey, it would be really meaningful if you came to this event. I know it might not be something that you typically involve yourself in, but I really need the help, and it would be lovely to have you, and I think you'll get something out of it. I think a lot of pro-life activism, and a lot of any activism, has to be interpersonal, and you take what's in their heart of some level of knowledge of, okay, abortion is wrong, and then you give them something to do, and then you invite them to get involved, and you make it less difficult for them to take that first step. If that first step is like a 2 foot, 1 meter step, then it's going to be hard for them to get from the ground level to that. But if you put up a ladder, or if you start creating baby steps for them, they can get to that first step. And so you have to do that for them. So find mentors, develop interpersonal relationships. Don't let yourself get discouraged by it. The Bible is full of examples of people getting, you know, starting with nothing, but God uses that mustard seed to really develop, and God will use that. So be in prayer too.
Thank you. You actually said something very shortly, but I think I want to talk about that a little more. You said that maybe it's not enough just to post content online. Sometimes you have to go somewhere physically. Now, obviously, we live in the era of digitalization, and young people who are not just living in it, but actually are born in it and are growing in it, they're the most affected, I think. And now we consume a lot of online content. Many, I would say, consume more online content than real life content. And could you talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this? So on one hand, how we can take advantage of technology and how can young people use social media to promote the pro-life message, but also what would be the dangers of this excessive technologization for young people?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, not all technology is bad. I tend to, not like technology. I'm a little bit of a Luddite, but not all technology is bad. It's had a great impact for the pro-life movement and the development of ultrasounds and pregnancy tests and uh, bringing that humanity to the child. But in terms of the social media that you're talking about, uh, a lot of people got involved in the pro-life movement by watching stuff that they saw on YouTube about like the live action abortion procedures videos that are extremely powerful witnesses about what life is and what abortion is. So, it can be very powerful to share those things online and inform people of, hey, this is what's going on. This is what abortion is. I think for myself, I was never a social media first type person. I would let the other officers in the club post the stuff on social media, and I don't think I made a pro-life post my first 3 years of involvement in the pro-life movement. Like the first 3 years of college, I was like, no, I'm keeping I'm keeping that away. I'm not touching that. I'll just show up to these meetings and ask good questions or something.
By posting, do you mean posting on your personal account?
Yes, my personal
Yeah.
account. I would help with the club Instagram account, but yeah, I wasn't one to post, abortion is murder or something on my Facebook page. And we can get into the messaging later, but I mean, I don't know if that's the best way to get your message out. But now I'd say technology. One thing to keep in mind with technology and younger users is they living in a digital world. You are very much like a post, share it on your story, but then that's all you do, and you spend your days on Netflix or Twitter or whatever. And I do that sometimes myself. So it's this is not me. Oh, the young folks are, and I've got it all figured out, because I don't. But one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of pro-life act or a lot of activism in general, I'm not going to say pro-life activism, is sitting behind a computer, being a keyboard warrior, that kind of thing. At least a lot of what it is today. So you get a lot of people who are trained to not be highly involved in activism. It's not like a get your hands dirty type thing. So it's hard to motivate them to get out. But at the same time, if that creates a great opportunity, because I think what's missing in a lot of our society is you get all these people, and you look at like workplace surveys, all that kind of stuff, and everyone's searching for meaning. Someone's searching to make a difference in the world. That's what all people, like all students and all people our age, are very idealistic. They don't want to be punching numbers for a company that's all about widgets and stuff. They want to be part of a company that's changing the world in some way, and that's why you get a lot of these social justice campaigns and from companies now. And I don't think that's generally a good thing from the way that a lot of that's going in the wrong direction, I think. But for like youth want to be involved in something that's meaningful, and if you give that to them and you make it so that they're hands on, I think there's a lot of potential once you get someone out of that, keyboard warrior phase into the community and making a difference. So I think one of the biggest things that made a difference for me was going out on the sidewalk outside of our abortion clinics and seeing the women go in and abort their babies and come out. And they went in with 2 lives, they came out with 1, and the brokenness that you saw there. So technology, I think it's a good way to spread a message, but not always get that message to germinate. So you need to be planting seeds and sharing what you're doing and telling people, hey, this is ways you can be involved. But when it comes to actually capitalizing that, you need a real relationship with the people, your followers, the people that you're sharing with. You need to talk to them. You need to text them individually. You need to call them individually. You need to talk to them in person about, hey, do you want to go to this thing? So a lot of my activism is targeted at getting a person who's involved in, like, someone's involved in pro-life or cares about the pro-life issue. I know they're Christian and conservative or whatever, and I know they have this opinion. I need to get them from just having that opinion to going to a pro-life event, and then they go to 2 pro-life events in a year. I want to get them to go next year to 4 pro-life events, and then get them in that state of creating habits for themselves and getting them to start to do what I was talking about earlier, where they are responding to the message, they are responding to the call when it is just an Instagram post. So like I now tend to respond fairly well to Instagram posts where it's like, we're having this rally next week about, a pro-life issue. I don't even have to like the image or comment I'm coming or text anyone. I'll just be like, okay, I'm going. So trying to get other people in that same frame of mind, and that's difficult, but it does come. I think I've seen it, and it gets really exciting when you start sharing posts on Instagram or social media, and then people just show up without telling you they show up. Man, those people are the best. I love those people.
So I think it's quite linked to this question. The next one I'm going to ask you: what do you think is the biggest obstacle we face in the pro-life volunteering?
Well, the answer to that is apathy. I think I draw a lot of parallels between the pro-life movement and just our faith. I think, for one, those two things are very much in lockstep. I think, sharing the message of life is another way of communicating the gospel of life, the gospel of Christ coming and resurrection and dying for our sins, the good news. So I think there's something to be said also for where the gospel thrives. The gospel has thrived in areas of persecution, in times where it's difficult. I think if you look to the church in countries where the church is being persecuted, the faith that you see in the people who are still joining together and coming together for meetings and seeking out eagerly for a Bible is just really amazing and encouraging. And I think that's also true for the pro-life movement, where the more people are, persecuted for their beliefs, but recognize that those beliefs are true, the more that they tend to respond. And I think in the U.S., at least, there's a level of kind of social ostracism, maybe, of, you're just about controlling women and all that kind of ridiculousness. But and honestly, I don't think we're too terribly put upon in the U.S. on the issue. But I think a lot of people don't. It doesn't register to them that it's an important issue, and again, that dissonance between knowledge that life is important and willingness to do something about it. And a lot of the problem is they don't see that what they can do is actually meaningful. So they want to be like, if they could go out and save a baby every time that they're involved in a pro-life event, then they would be doing that. They do care about that. They just don't always see the connection between what they're doing and actually the outcome that they're looking for. So a lot of times our role as an activist is to connect the dots for them, to tell them that it's important, or to get them realizing that they're part of a bigger picture, that they are part of a bigger movement, and that their contribution makes an impact, makes a difference. So, as pro-life leaders, that's part of our job, to communicate that and to let them know that they make a difference, or that they're encouraging us when they show up to an event. I always think, at least I try to always thank people when they show up to an event, and it is really encouraging when people show up.
Yeah, that's totally right. Now, John Mark, you're a man, and we know that many times men are silenced on the abortion issue because it is not their body that is the pregnant one, but the woman's. Obviously, there is some dishonesty here, because only if you are pro-life, you are silenced. If you are not pro-life, you're not silenced. Now, here I have two questions for you. What is your take on this? And what is the role of men and young men in the pro-life issue?
Well, unfortunately, the way society is today, there's this level of, women and men are equal, and women can do everything that men can do, and if men try to speak about something that, men can't get pregnant, as much as society might be trying to tell us otherwise right now, men cannot get pregnant. And so as men try to speak out and say something about it, women or society and the pro-abortion movement is saying, no, you can't speak about this because you don't have a uterus, you don't have an opinion, which is the stupidest slogan. But anyway, I think we have to a lot of times go back to the basics of, well, what is abortion? Abortion is murder. It's killing this baby in the womb. It's tearing the baby apart. You talk about the forms of abortion. It's crushing the skull. It's poisoning the baby. It's burning the baby alive with saline. Lots of different ways to kill a child, and that's not something where it matters between like a woman having an opinion on that or a man having an opinion on it. That's just wrong. So, starting off with, what are the facts of the situation? This is wrong. This is killing a child, and you don't have to be a woman to understand that. The other thing to recognize is, men played a role in that, and a lot of women who have abortions have them because either they feel that they were pressured into doing that by the boyfriend or the husband or the family, or in the very least they didn't feel that they had the support structure needed in the form of a man who loved them and cared about them and wanted to love the child that he created with this woman. So a lot of it is stepping up and realizing, hey, you're a man, you were created to protect and defend, and that's how your biology is wired to do. What your biology is wired to do, you need to actually step up and do that. And another thing, and this is not specific to men necessarily, but again, drawing those lines again to Christianity and sharing our faith, I was always reminded by this quote, and it's by this atheist Penn Jillette, and he always spoke about how he has zero respect for people who are Christians who don't try to evangelize him, because if you're a Christian, you believe that if you are not a Christian and you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, that you are destined to hell and everlasting damnation and death. And that's a horrible fate and just a terrible thing. And we don't want that for you. And if you're not sharing that with every person you meet and telling them, hey, I don't want you to go over here, I don't want you to do this thing, then do you actually believe that, is the question. And the same thing is true of, if we believe that abortion is killing an innocent child, then you have to say something. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if you can grow a baby in your own womb. It matters that this is murder and this is wrong, and you need to stand up and say something about it. So, for a lot of I think you have to take this approach of not letting people's comments like that get to you. It's got to be water off of a duck's back. They're trying to use a false argument against you, and I think if they start using that argument against you, you know you've made a good point. You know you've won, because it's just a cop out. Your opinion doesn't matter any less because you're a man, and you have an obligation, you have a biological and biblical obligation to stand up for the baby. And men really need to stand up in society and say, we're responsible for this too, and we are also the victim of half of abortions. So
Mm-hmm. Yes. I actually had a recent conversation with someone who told me this, that he's a guy, so he doesn't really want to say anything on the subject because he doesn't know what women are going through. And I told him, well, you should get informed then, because you'll see that many abortions are caused by the pressure of the partner who doesn't want to take responsibility for the child. And also this idea that you said, that it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man, when such an injustice happens, we need to say something about it, because otherwise, if we're just staying silent on the side, it's just basically encouraging it without saying anything, because we just let things happen. So I think that's extremely wrong. Now, in the end, I would like to discuss a little about the drive to do things. Some people consider that this issue does not concern them, or it's maybe too far away from them. Can you talk about what is our responsibility towards unborn children and their mothers, maybe in a more concrete way than in the answer to the last question that was more general, and why we should get involved starting in college or high school even, and what can we do practically? What would you recommend young people to do to get involved at their level?
that's a big question. I think it starts with knowledge of the truth, knowledge that, abortion is wrong, abortion is murder, all those things. And then stepping out and taking the first step of, hey, if I believe X is true, then it is incumbent upon me to do Y. And for me, that was how I got started of, okay, I know abortion is wrong. I need to go do something about it. Doesn't have to change the world or anything, but I need to try to do something about it. I need to at least communicate to other people, hey, I think this is a big issue. Um, so for me, I think a lot of pro-life activism, or like the trajectory of your life is, you're going in this one direction, and sometimes something takes you way off course and you have an immediate, come to Jesus moment. Not everyone has a Paul, God descending and shining a bright light and saying, Paul, I'm calling you, stop what you're doing and switch over to me, because like this is wrong. So not a lot of people have that conversion. Some people do. They see an abortion and suddenly they go from being pro-life to suddenly from being pro-choice to being suddenly I'm a pro-life activist. I'm going to go do everything that I can starting today to do that. A lot of people, it's more of a gradual. They start off pro-choice, but now they're thinking, well, maybe abortion should be illegal after the heartbeat, and then they start realizing, oh, well, maybe it should just be like totally wrong, and then finally they're like, okay, well, this is what I believe. Now, what's something I can do for it? So I'm going to go to a pro-life banquet, and then I'm going to go start supporting a ministry financially, and then I'm going to go start doing some activism, and then I'm going to actually start voting based on my principles, or actually doing something, and then I'm going to start doing stuff on my own, out of my own volition, out of my own initiative, trying to make a difference, seeing opportunities to change things. So a lot of people, you have to understand it's going to be that gradual process, and sometimes that's difficult when you get out of college and you don't have all that time on your hands. You have a job that's working you 9 to 5 or worse. Europe's a little bit different than the U.S. on that, but you don't seem to have that ability to keep up that level of activism. So I think understanding that as you're ministering and working with other people, that it's a gradual process for them most of the time, and you're trying to get them from 80% committed to 85% committed to 200% committed. You're trying to like move that needle, move that dial for them. And I think another thing that, was really powerful for me is making that jump from, okay, this is a theoretical thing. This is, stuff that we debate about on college campuses, to, oh, actually meeting some people who are going through this difficult circumstance and helping them. So get involved in your local pregnancy resource centers or your sidewalk counseling ministries, the people who are on the ground actually helping and making a difference. Because I don't like the politics of the pro-life movement. I don't like going and, arguing for pro-life laws and everything. Like, I do it. I think that's an obligation. That's something that I do out of a duty, but it's not something that I do out of a love and an enjoy, like a sense of personal enjoyment. Now you get politicos and people who are like, I'm a poli-sci major or something like that, and they really want to do that. They want to do that. Going and talking to legislators, all that kind of stuff. And like I've gotten more comfortable with it, but you got to find in the pro life movement what makes you tick, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. And for me, like, it's so exciting to be able to like hold a baby who you helped save in a way where I got to do that when I went and visited Uganda again. Some of the moms in my local like who were going to some, like, as I was sidewalk counseling, I started interacting with some of the mothers who had saved their babies and they needed help at school, and sometimes they needed tutoring, or they needed someone to just pick up their child from school one day, or from like their daycare. And so you can help with that, and you start seeing, wait, this really makes a difference, and this baby that I'm holding is alive because that mom chose life, and I or some of my friends helped her with that. So you start seeing, this isn't a theoretical thing. This is a real thing. This is a real life. So finding opportunities for you to make it real for people is really important.
John Mark, thank you so much for all the answers you gave, and for sharing your experience, for being honest, and for being such an encouragement for young people, for me as well. And I really think that what you talked today about will be very useful for our generation and for the young generation here in Romania and all over the world. So thank you, John, for being here on
Thanks
Seeing
for
the
having me.
Unseen. All right.
Have a good one. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.